The next date between Sam and myself took place 3 days later at 6 p.m., this time taking place at Bell's Pizza. The restaurant was part of a franchise that had grown out of Kentucky, and there were about one Bell's Pizza on every other street corner. The building this one was located in was of a dark blue texture with several chips to the paint that would give off the impression it hadn't been painted since first being constructed. I arrived roughly 10 minutes ahead of 6 p.m., so around 5:50, just to stand outside with my hands in my pockets. One could make the argument that I should have made the reservations or tried booking ahead of her coming, but now that I had a peek at her options, there was a smaller inclination to try thinking ahead and accepting of a reality for which I could no longer deny. She arrived 2 minutes before the 18th hour of that day, a smile appearing on her face while she looked at me. I stared back with indifference. "You don't look so happy to see me," she said. "Really?" I asked her. "I can't imagine why." She proceeded to walk into the restaurant. I stepped behind her with a slow pace. I had about one footstep for every three of hers. She had started speaking with an employee at the cash register when I was only inches away from the doorway, her turning her head to look at me when the employee finished taking our information down and had moved from behind the cash register, suggesting that he wanted to lead my date and myself to our respective seats. Only then did I increase my speed, the more so out of respect for the employee. He did nothing wrong after all. Why should I worsen his job for the reluctance I had toward my date? The three of us walked over to a table by the window, the ones around it having an assortment of people there. We sat on opposing sides and ordered our drinks, me having a glass of water while she ordered a 7-Up. I sat there with my mouth on a straw and stared out the window, following the waiter, leaving the two of us alone, Sam pressing her hand against my left arm. "What you thinking about?" she asked me. "How I'm going to get over what you did," I answered. "So you don't want to date anymore?" Part of me wants that. The other part feels pushed back to the point of dropping you entirely. All I did was answer a call. "Look, I know you think what you did was good. Nothing I say is going to have any effect," I told her. "So I'm going to return to my window and straw." She placed her hand on my arm. I looked at her with a smirk, turning my attention back to the window. "What was that about?" I asked her. "Me trying to show you that I care," she answered. "Why'd you look at me like that?" "Because if I was on a date with another woman and just randomly touched her, I'd probably get told I went too far too quick." "So that comment was on gender roles?" "Oh yeah." I leaned back in my seat. "If I did what you did," I said, "I'm about 99% sure I would have been criticized for talking to another woman after dating her and while dating you. It would be the beginning of World War III, if not the end of our courtship." "I wouldn't get as mad as you were," she told me. "So if I call someone right now that's a woman, you'll be fine with it?" She looked down at the table and then back at me in a span of seconds as though she was thinking it over. "You can call whoever she wants," she said. I nodded my head and smirked, pulling my cell phone out of my pocket. It took moments for me to think of who I wanted to call. The only real question was whether she would answer or not. "Hello?" Ann said. "Yeah, I'm at a fancy restaurant," I told her. "Maybe that's why you've chosen to answer your phone for once. When are you coming down here? When you actually plan out a visit? I already told you before what you need to do." "Can I call you back?" "You can call back. Doesn't mean I'll answer." She hung up the phone. I placed my phone back in my pocket and glanced at Sam, who appeared surprised by the briefness of the call. "That woman is what I would consider a sad reminder of what most of you turn out to be," I told Sam. "What do most of us turn out to be?" "You all have some redeeming quality that I do my best to recognize until becoming gradually disenchanted by the lack of effort back." I pressed my legs to face her directly and had my hand hit the table. "Picture this," I told her. "You want a guy to come see you. You contact him, saying you're wondering why he's single. The guy becomes convinced from this rhetoric that you want to try getting to know him. However, when you become distant, sometimes not answering your phone for weeks or responding to a text for days, would you find a man in this situation wrong for thinking that you weren't trying back?" She shook her head. "You seem well-founded," she answered. "Now picture a woman that jumps in bed with multiple guys she's not even dating," I continued. "She complains about how men leave women behind sometimes with bastard children for them to raise on their own, and you respond to this mindset by offering to marry her before you sleep together. Her resolve is to keep perpetuating that belief and shut out the guy who's proposed an alternative to what she feels so distressed about. Do you see where the man would feel wronged?" She nodded her head. "Now do you understand my discontent with you?" I asked her. "Me talking to a guy on the phone is nothing like that," she answered. "It's not about talking on the phone with a guy, it's about options." I pointed out the window I'd stared through before. You could go out there now and have 10 men take notice of you, I told her. I and most other guys are lucky to have one woman come to us. So me just walking down the street automatically means I'm going to have 10 dates? No, I'm saying you have a heightened chance. I'm sure some other people have better chances, like celebrities or more attractive people. That's correct, but there is a reason you never see a woman complain about how they can't get a man. And that would be that you don't have to worry about trying to appeal to someone. In any event, where I've complained about my stroke of luck, you know what I get told. My voice changed to mirror those self-described romantic advisors. Just go to the gym, change the way you dress, find a new hobby, approach 5 women a day. I said, my voice returned to normal with my following words. I bet you couldn't name a single instance where someone told you one of those things. She remained silent as if to seriously think about it. You're right, she said. It isn't fair, I told her, looking out the window with despondence. You've never talked this clearly about what bothers you with me before. I try not to. My family doesn't need to know how pained I am about this. But why are you so bothered by people just not wanting to date you? Here I go having to explain things again. I leaned into her. It's more so about people that say they want to, I told her. You have stated your interest in going out with me, so when you show interest in another man, especially one that I knew you at one point dated, it's like a slap in the face. That's more disheartening than me going up to a woman and having her just turn me down without a second thought. Why? She asked. Because you entertain the idea that you have some basic interest in trying to do something with me. With ones I've randomly gone up to, and when they decline, I get over it quickly as they've never entertained the thought. So the possibility is harder than there being no chance at all. Now you're getting it. I leaned my head slightly over to her, my neck extending in her direction while the rest of me remained in place. You have so much potential, I told her. We could do all kinds of things if you chose to focus on me and I chose to focus on you. Nice little tone shift, she said with a smirk. There is a chance for us. I know there is, but it can't happen if you convince yourself that it could never be. I wouldn't be on this date if I thought there wasn't, neither would I. She took my hand. I really wanted to believe when that happened she was serious. I really wanted to think this was a turning point in my favor. So when do you want to go out again? She asked me. Whenever you can. Trick question. You were supposed to say that this date wasn't over, so I shouldn't be trying to rush into another one. I think we've come to a better understanding over the course of this one. Our food arrived moments later, the waiter placing 2 plates on my side and 3 on hers. I'd ordered macaroni and cheese, which was taking up an entire plate on its own, and a steak that the restaurant decorated with carrots and broccoli. Sam ordered a steak that was similar to mine, had another plate that was full with mashed potatoes, and a third plate that contained a smaller batch of macaroni. I pointed at the third plate and had half a smirk as I spoke. You stole my idea, I said. You only ordered it after me. Believe in that revisionist history, why don't you? We spoke very little for the remaining time we were eating, aside from a few requests to pass the ketchup and other things that were dispatched on the table. We left out the restaurant without saying much to get to each other either, her following behind me while I went to my car. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rank it? Probably a 9, she told me. That's much higher than I expected. I didn't like your attitude at the start and your lack of confidence at the end. Lack of confidence at the end. You should always pretend to think anyone that goes out with you is going to date you, or rate you a 9. That view sounds very narcissistic and conceited. Why do you think so many people go on dates and don't stay together? So that's your way of saying there are a lot of people who are very narcissistic and conceited? Pretty much. Do you think there are a lot of people who can't make up their minds and just do something? Yeah. Do you think you're one of them? Sometimes. You either are or you aren't. Do you think I am? I nodded my head and she had a brief scowl that turned into a smirk while she placed her hands in her pockets. How am I indecisive? She asked me. Because you talk to multiple guys at once and don't try to make anything serious with any of them, I answered. Still on me answering that phone call during that date, huh? Yeah, you said some things since then that really have had me convinced you won't do the same thing. So what's the problem? You wouldn't be the first one it happened with. My mind deviated several months back. When I was on the phone with Rivka at the bizarre hour of the night, I had slept for several hours during the day, making me not all tired during the normal hours for which I slept with my eyes closed. It's like you can never just come to anything, I told her. You're just this dumb bimbo. Did you just call me a bimbo? She asked me. That's right. She paused as though thinking it over, and I could hear the faint sound of her laughing. Call me it again, she said. Okay, bimbo. She was silent for the next few moments. Call me it again, she called out, her voice sounding more excited than I had heard it throughout the entire call. Shut up, bimbo, I said. I could hear her laughing again. Are you getting turned on by this? I asked her. Yeah. Ew. You're bothered by that? Yes. Why? When you're told you need to be nice to someone for them to want to do anything with you and then get another person wetting themselves over you talking down to her. It becomes a strange game of people being aroused by wrong and unjust behavior.